Welcome, dear children. Welcome to your own channel, Amazing Science. And today we are going to discuss the exercises and question answers of the chapter Cell. Though this chapter has been excluded from CBSE, but still, since we have finished this chapter and this chapter is very important, you are going to study the same in your next class, that is class 9th as well. So here we have got the introduction of the cell organelles, their basic structure and their function. We have also studied about the difference between plant and animal cell. So let's start with the exercises and question answers. Here I will discuss in the next two videos also the exercises and question answers from NCERT and a few more books like New Science Ahead and Galaxy, a course in science. So in this video we are going to discuss about the exercises and question answers of the book Galaxy, a course in science. So let's get started. So the first question of our chapter Cell is choose the correct options. You are provided with a few statements along with their possible four options and you have to choose which one is the appropriate one or which one is the correct one. Okay. So our first statement given is in plant and animal cells, the control center of the cell is the. Now, which is the control center of the cell, whether it is a plant cell or animal cell or prokaryotic cell or eukaryotic cell, there is only one control center and that is our nucleus. Okay, so the correct option will be nucleus. Now, the next statement is the storage compartment of the cell is the, which is the cell organelle which performs the function of storage. Can it be nucleus? No. Cell membrane? No. Vacuole? Yes. It is the vacuole which stores or performs the function of storage. Then the next statement is synthesis of protein takes place in. Now which cell organelle is the site of protein synthesis? It is mitochondria? No, because mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Endoplasmic reticulum? No, it forms a framework and helps in the transportation of substances. Leucoplast? No, it is a form of plastids and it cannot perform the function of protein synthesis. Ribosomes? Yes, these are the ribosomes which perform the function of protein synthesis or which are also called the site of protein synthesis, the cell organelle where the synthesis of protein takes place. Then the next question is the membrane enclosing the cytoplasm is. Now, which is the membrane which encloses the cytoplasm? Cytoplasm is the cell liquid and it is enclosed by what? Is it enclosed by tonoplast, cell membrane, nuclear membrane or cell wall? So the correct answer is cell membrane. The membrane which encloses the cytoplasm is cell membrane. Then next is the centrosome has how many centrioles? 1, 2, 3 or there is no centriole. So it has 2 centrioles. And centrosome is present in animal cells. Then next is the suicidal bags of the cells are. There is a very typical cell organelle in the cells, whether plant or animal cell, which digests itself. And can you name that cell organelle? That is lysosomes. So our next statement is petals have a large number of what? You are given with 4 options: leucoplast, chloroplast, chromoplast and tonoplast. Now tonoplast is the membrane which forms the vacuole. So it can be excluded immediately. Then leucoplast, chloroplast and chromoplast, these are the 3 kinds of plastids which have their different functions. Like leucoplasts, they do not provide any color. Chloroplasts, they provide green color to the part where they are present. That's why they are found in the parts of the plants which are green in color. Then chromoplasts are the plastids which provide or which impart all the colors except green. Okay, so the correct option for this will be chromoplast. Why? Because what are petals? Petals, you know, if you remember in class 7 you have studied about the structure of flower, and there you have seen the 4 different parts of the flower. The outermost was the sepal, which was green in color. The next was the petal, which was colorful. For different flowers it was imparting different colors, right? The next 2 parts were the sexual parts of the plants, that is the stamen and the carpel. So colorful parts have a large number of chromoplasts. So chromoplast will be the correct option. The next statement is, this cell organelle carries genes which are responsible for transmitting characters from the parent to the offspring. You know that there are certain genetic transformation from the parents to their offsprings, and this genetic message or the genetic characters from the parents to their offsprings or to their progeny are carried by genes. They are the carriers for carrying the characters from the parent to their offspring, and they are confined or they are present in the center part of the cell, the head of the cell, the control center of the cell, which is nucleus. Okay. Now moving on to the next question, where you have to say whether the given statements are correct or not. You have to say whether they are true or false. So the very first statement is, the cell membrane is selectively permeable membrane. So this statement is correct. Why? Because cell membrane is the membrane which allows only selective materials to pass through them. Their next statement is, chromoplasts are found in the green parts of the plant. Now this is again the repetition. Just now we have studied that chromoplasts are the kind of plastids which impart all the colors except the green. So they cannot be found in the green parts of the plant. So this statement is incorrect. This is false. The next statement is, nucleoplasm transports material within as well as outside the cell. So nucleoplasm is the material which is confined in the nuclear region. It is found in the nuclear region and it does not transport material outside the cell or within the cell. Okay. For the transportation, we have another framework, we have another network, that is endoplasmic reticulum. So this statement will be false. Then next statement is, large sized vacuoles are present in animal cells. If you remember, we have studied that large sized vacuoles are the characteristic feature of plant cells. They are so much big that they almost cover half or more than half of the part of a cell. Okay, so this statement will be false. Then the next statement is, centrioles help in cell division in animal cells. So this is correct. Then ribosomes are capable of destroying the cell in which they are present. In the first question also we have discussed that ribosomes are the cell organelles which are the site of protein synthesis. Okay, and we have also studied, we have also gone through one question where we have seen that lysosomes are known as the suicidal bags because they can destroy the cell in which they are present. So this statement becomes incorrect, that is, it is false. Now moving on to the third question, where you are provided with 2 different columns and you have to match. In one column you are given with the cell organelles and you have to match them with their specific function. Because When we have studied about the structure of cell, there we have seen that each and every part of the cell, starting from the cell wall, cell membrane, nucleus, nuclear membrane, and all the cell organelles, they have got their specific functions. Okay, so let's crack out this puzzle and let's see what are and how we can match them. So first is cell wall. Now let's find out what is the function of cell wall. So cell wall provides protection and shape. So this will be the correct match for cell wall. Then nucleus. Nucleus is what? Nucleus controls all the activities of the cell. Correct? Just trying to change the color of the pen. Then third is Golgi bodies. Golgi bodies, what do they do? Golgi bodies, they are responsible for the packaging of materials for transportation. Okay, they are responsible for the packaging of material for transportation. Then next is endoplasmic reticulum. An endoplasmic reticulum, they make a framework and help in the transportation of materials. So this will be the option D. Correct? The next is cell membrane. Now what is the function of cell membrane? So it controls the entry and exit of substances. Okay. Next is vacuole. Now what is the function of vacuole? It stores food and other nutrients. The next is ribosome. We have already discussed 2 times that ribosomes, they are the site of protein synthesis. Then lysosomes. Lysosomes. Sorry, this is wrong. This is not protein synthesis, but it is photosynthesis. So ribosome will be this one, first one, protein synthesis. Okay. The next is lysosome. Lysosome, you know, they are called as the suicidal bags. Why? Because they can digest the cell waste, and if the time comes, they can digest the cell in which they are present. So here option 4 will be the correct match for lysosome. And the last one is chloroplast. Chloroplast, you know, they are the site of photosynthesis. Okay. So the correct sequence is G, E, F, H, A, I, B, D, C. Okay. Now moving on to the question answers. Answer in brief. The first question is, why is the cell membrane said to be a semi-permeable membrane? Now cell membrane, if we talk about the plant cell, then it will be placed after the cell wall, because in plant cell there is a cell wall present which is made up of cellulose. And if we talk about animal cells, the outermost covering is the cell membrane. So whether it is a plant cell or an animal cell, in both the cases, the cell membrane is the membrane which is semi-permeable, or we can say it is selectively permeable in nature. It allows only selective materials to pass through it, whether they want to enter or they want to go outside the cell. So let's see what will be the correct answer for this. The thin outer covering of the cell is called the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. It separates the inside of the cell from its surroundings. It is selectively permeable, which means that it allows only specific substances such as water and minerals to pass through it. So let's draw the diagram of the nucleus. It is generally spherical or oval in shape, so I'll be drawing an oval diagram, oval nucleus. I must be thinking why I am drawing this with giving some space between these lines. So I'll be telling you later why I'm drawing this like this. Now this is the outermost covering of the nucleus, and this is called as the nuclear membrane. So this is nuclear membrane. Okay, then these gaps, they are called as nuclear pore. They are called as nuclear pore. Okay, then inside the nucleus there is a huge or a big spherical body, and this structure is called as nucleolus. This is called as nucleolus. Okay, then the genetic material which is present inside, it is present in the form of entangled threads, and they are called as chromatin material. It is called as chromatin material, on which genes are present, and they are responsible for the transfer of characters from the parent to the offspring. Now inside this nucleus there is, as I told you, a jelly-like substance, a jelly-like material, which is called as, this jelly-like liquid or semi-liquid material is called as nucleoplasm. Okay, so this is the structure of a nucleus. If we talk about the basic structure of a nucleus, so this is the structure. The outermost covering is the nuclear membrane. Then it has some gaps or small pores which are called as nuclear pore. Inside the nucleus there is a huge spherical body which is called as nucleolus. The semi-jelly-like liquid, semi-solid liquid inside the nucleus is called as nucleoplasm. Then the chromatin threads are present which are responsible for the transfer of characters from the parent to the offspring. So moving on to the answer, what we'll write, since this is answer in brief, so no need to write a huge history about everything. You may start with the structure of the nucleus, or you may directly jump in to the main part, which is as that why it is called as the center of the cell. But it will be good, because as I have always told my students, that if it is a question of 2 marks, 3 marks or 5 marks, it will be good if you have time, try to explain your answers with the diagrams, and it is utmost important in case of biology. Okay, so it will be good if you can draw a small diagram of the nucleus, and never forget to label the diagram, and never forget to name the diagram, that is structure of nucleus. Since I am having a very less space, that's why I'm just writing nucleus. So what you will write? You will be writing the nucleus is the largest cell organelle which is generally spherical in shape. It regulates the process or the processes that go on inside the cell. It controls all the activities of the cell. It is therefore called as control center of the cell. You may add that it is also compared to the brain of the cell. Okay. Okay. Now moving on to the next question, that is describe the functions of the cell wall. You know that cell wall is present only in plant cells, and it is made up of cellulose. Okay, it is the characteristic of plant cells only, and it is made up of cellulose. It is present outside the cell membrane in case of plant cell, because in animal cells, cell membrane will be the outermost boundary. But in case of plant cell, the outermost boundary will be the cell wall, which is thick, rigid. It provides shape to the cell, and it is made up of cell wall. And after the cell wall, there comes the cell membrane. So cell wall is situated outside the cell membrane. It is a thick wall which is made up of cellulose. It supports and protects the cell. It also gives the cell a rigid shape or structure. And most important thing, that it is the characteristic of plant cells only. Animal cells do not have a cell wall. Okay, and this is the reason why animal cells, they do not have a rigid shape. So what you will write here, you'll be writing cell wall is the characteristic of plant cells. It is present outside the cell membrane. It is a thick cell wall made of cellulose. It supports and protects the cell. It gives the cell a rigid shape. So our next question is, why are mitochondria called the powerhouse of cells? Powerhouse means what? Powerhouse means which is the source of power, which can distribute power, which can store power and can distribute power in case of need. So why mitochondria, they are called as the powerhouse of the cells? So if you remember, when we have studied about the structure of mitochondria, there also we have discussed that mitochondria, they are the main site of cell respiration. They are the main seat of cell respiration. And what do? They use the oxygen and bring about the oxidation of food. Oxidation of food, if you remember in class 7, we have studied the chapter respiration, and where we have seen that food gets oxidized and gets broken down into different substances to release energy. Okay, the oxygen acts on the food and breaks the food, basically like carbohydrates and fats, and breaks them into carbon dioxide and water. So this oxidation of food, it releases energy, and this energy is temporarily stored in the form of ATP. Now what is this ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate. These are small energy packets. In these packets, the energy remains stored, and when it is needed, it gives out one packet of energy and gets converted into ADP. Then ADP again gives out one packet of energy and gets converted into AMP. So you'll be studying about this in class 9th. It's in detail. Okay, so you just remember that mitochondria, they are the main site of respiration where the oxidation of food takes place, and this oxidation of food, it releases energy. This energy gets stored in the form of small energy packets, and these packets are called as ATP. The full form of ATP is adenosine triphosphate. No need to write it in your answer. It's just for your knowledge. And this is the reason why the mitochondria, they are often described as or often called as the storage batteries, or they are also called as the powerhouse of the cell. Okay. So what you will write? You will be writing mitochondria are the small oval structures. They are called as the powerhouse of the cell because they are the sites of respiration. They contain enzymes which release energy from food. Okay, that much is enough. The next question is, how are prokaryotic cells different from eukaryotic cells? So when we have started the chapter, there only I have explained you about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. The prokaryotic cell, if we split this word prokaryotic, we'll get two different terms, that is pro and karyon, where pro means primitive and karyon means nucleus. And if we split the term eukaryotic, there we'll get two words, that is you and carry-on, where you means true and carry-on again means nucleus. So from the name, it is somewhat clear that there is something which is kind of primitive in prokaryotic and there is something which is kind of true in eukaryotic. Now what is this something? This something is from the second word, that is carry-on, which means nucleus. So in prokaryotic cell, the type of nucleus is primitive type, okay, which is not well defined. Whereas in case of eukaryotic cell, the nucleus is very well defined. Now what is the meaning of well defined and not defined? So well defined means like from the crowd, if you can't recognize what is that object is, right? So I'm just giving you one example. So in case of prokaryotic cells, the nucleus is not well defined. It is not bound by any membrane. So you cannot identify where the nucleus is and where the other cell organelles are. But in case of eukaryotic cell, the diagram which you have practiced, which you have studied about the cell which you have studied about the eukaryotic cell, where you can very well identify where is the nucleus because it is bounded by a well-defined nuclear membrane, and all the cell organelles, they also have well-defined membranes, so you can identify each and every cell organelle very well. Okay, so this is the main difference. So in case of prokaryotic cell, they do not have a well-defined nucleus, whereas in eukaryotic cell, they have a well-defined nucleus. The nuclear material is not enclosed by the nuclear membrane. The nuclear membrane encloses the nuclear material. This is the main difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. There are other differences also, like prokaryotic cells, they are generally smaller in size, whereas the eukaryotic cells, they are larger in size. Then in case of prokaryotic cell, the nucleolus is absent. In eukaryotic cell, nucleolus is present. Membrane-bound cell organelles are absent in case of prokaryotic cells. Means the cell organelles, they will remain embedded in the cytoplasm, but you cannot identify them properly. But in case of eukaryotic cell, membrane-bound cell organelles are present. You can easily identify them. So you may add these points as well, but these two are the main points. Then our next question is, what are the functions of vacuoles? So what are vacuoles? Vacuoles, they are the large storage sacs, large if we talk about plants, and very small storage sacs if we talk about animal cells. So vacuoles are basically the storage sacs where they can store solid or liquid contents, and it remains bounded by a membrane, and this membrane is called as tonoplast. All these things I have explained in my first video where I have explained about the structure of vacuoles. So no need to write it here. You are asked with the functions of vacuoles. So you may simply start with introducing the vacuoles. That what are vacuoles? They are the storage sacs which are found in the cytoplasm. And what is their function? Their function is to store food and a variety of nutrients. And besides storing food and nutrients, they can also store the waste material. And one more important point you may add here, since we talk when we talk about the plant cell, there we say that in plant cell almost or more than half of the cell is occupied by the vacuole, and this is the reason they provide rigidity and shape to the cell. So you may add here that these vacuoles, they provide rigidity and shape to plant cells. Okay, this much is enough. Okay, moving on to our last question of answer and brief category. The last question is write the functions of lysosomes and Golgi bodies. So whenever you are asked with the functions, try to start your answer whether in one line or two line, just introducing about the cell organelle. So what are lysosomes? They are membrane bound cell organelles which are responsible for the digestion within the cell. That's why they are called as the suicidal bags, right? So and they are present in eukaryotic cells. So their main function is that they are the storehouse of digestive enzymes. That's why they are able to perform the function of digestion, and they digest the worn out cell organelles, the broken down or the older ones which are of no use, they digest it. Besides that, they also digest the food particles, they also digest the bacteria and the viruses which by any means have entered the cell. So basically they digest the useful material, they digest the harmful material, they digest the unwanted materials, and sometimes during their starvation they start digesting the stored food contents which are provided by uh, or which are needed for providing the energy to the cells, right? And that's why they are also called as the suicidal bags. Then talking about Golgi bodies. Golgi bodies or Golgi apparatus, if you remember, they look like stacks. So they are also called as Golgi bodies, Golgi apparatus, or Golgi complex, and it was discovered by Camillo Golgi. On his name only it has got its name. It is present in all the eukaryotic cells, and its shape is somewhat like a disc, and they are stacked one above the other like this. Okay, so their function is they are very active, and their main function is to receive, pack and distribute the chemical products within as well as outside the cells. So they are mainly responsible for the packaging of materials. Okay. So now we are moving on to the answer the following questions in detail, and the first question of this category is, what does the cell theory state? Now talking about the cell theory, it was presented by Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann, and to their theory one more point was added by Rudolf Virchow. So according to Schleiden and Schwann, all plants and animals, they are composed of cells, and cell is the basic unit of life. This was proposed by Schleiden and Schwann. Later discoveries led to the modification of the cell theory, and the modified cell theory states that all living beings are composed of cells. All cells are basically alike in structure, and means they are the structural and functional unit of all living beings. And the next point is that all the cells arise from their pre-existing cells, or we may say that the new cells arise from pre-existing cells. So these are the three main points. So first thing what you should remember in this question is that who proposed the cell theory. So it was proposed by Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann. Later on it was modified, later on few more discoveries were made and it was modified, and one more point was added by Rudolf Virchow. So all the three names to be mentioned in this answer, and then you have to mention the main points of the cell theory. That is, all living organisms are made up of cells. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living beings, and new cells, or you may write all the cells, they arise from their pre-existing cells. Okay. The next question is, explain the different types of cells on the basis of their shapes and sizes. So to answer this question, let's have a quick recap. We have studied, when we have started this chapter, we have studied that there are organisms like unicellular and multicellular. Means there are certain organisms which are made up of only one cell. There are organisms which are made up of more than one cell. So which are made up of one cell are called as unicellular organisms, and which are made up of more than one cell, they are called as multicellular organisms. Now depending upon their place, depending upon their uh, site where they are present, they may be of different shapes, they may be of different sizes. Depending on their function, they may be of their different shapes and sizes. So cells, they vary in shape, size and number. Wherever and whatever is required, they are placed like that. So unicellular organisms are identified on the basis of their shape, since they are made up of only one cell, like amoeba, like paramecium, like yeast. They are made up of one cell only. So you can identify them uh, based on their shape. Like amoeba is irregular in shape, like yeast is spherical in shape, like paramecium is slipper-like in shape. That's why it is called as slipper animal, right? Then in multicellular organisms, the shape of the cell, it depends upon their position in the body, their specific function which they are going to perform, and uh, how they are placed with their neighboring cells. So these are the deciding factors which will decide that which type of shape and size they should be provided with. Okay. So to write this answer, you may write that depending on their function, the cells, they vary in shape and size. Cells may be oval, spindle shaped, spherical, cylindrical or rectangular in shape. They can also be found in irregular shape, like if we talk about amoeba, they are irregularly shaped. Then you may write different examples. I have written a very few examples, like bacterial cells, they are the smallest. You may write amoeba is irregularly shaped or unicellular organism. Longest cell in the human body, it is the nerve cell, and the egg of the ostrich, it is the largest cell. And to elaborate your answer, to express your answer in a more effective way, it will be good if you can draw the diagrams of a few cells showing the different shapes. Like you can draw the diagram of the longest cell, that is the nerve cell. You may draw the diagram of blood cells. You have seen disc-shaped RBCs, WBCs, irregularly shaped. You may draw the diagram of a sperm cell. It is of different shape. The cell of ovum, it is also single cell, but the shape is different. Okay. So in this way, you can elaborate your answer. Now moving on to the next question, that is explain the difference between plant and animal cell. This is very important question, and it is asked many a times, and you should know this also, that what are the basic difference between plant cell and animal cell. So it should include at least these many points, that plant cells, they have a rigid shape because of the presence of cell wall. Animal cells, they are without a rigid shape since there is no cell wall. Plant cells, they have a cell wall and it is made up of cellulose. Animal cells, they do not have cell wall. Cytoplasm in case of plant cell is not as dense as animal cell. While in case of animal cell, the cytoplasm is dense. In plant cell, they have a large central vacuole. Why I have written central vacuole? Because most of the time it covers almost more than half of the portion of the cell, and it is placed in such a way that sometimes it makes the nucleus shift from its central position. In case of animal cell, the vacuoles are either absent or very small. In plant cells, the plastids are present, whether it is leucoplast, chromoplast, chloroplast. If you want, you can elaborate this point. Then in animal cell, plastids are absent. In case of plant cells, centrosome is absent. In case of animal cells, centrosome is present. So I hope that these many points are suitable for this much of answer. So our last question of answer in detail is, what are the different types of plastids and state their functions? So you must be thinking that why I have made this chart, because personally I believe that when you represent your answer in the form of a ray diagram or in the form of a chart with the elaborative and well labeled diagrams, your answer becomes more catchy. The teacher automatically reads your answer and will be compelled to give you good marks. So that's my belief. You may write your answer in your own words with the help of this chart. So here I have made a chart where I have classified the plastids as chloroplast, chromoplast and leucoplast. In some books or in higher classes, you may find that the plastids, they are of two types: chromoplast and leucoplast. Leucoplast, they are the colorless plastids. They do not impart any color and they are stored in such places of the plant body where the sunlight do not reach, and their main function is to store food. Then this chromoplast can be non-green chromoplast and green chromoplast. So non-green chromoplast will impart all the colors other than green, and chloroplast will impart the green color. But in this class, we will follow this classification only. That is, the plastids, they are classified as chloroplast, chromoplast and leucoplast. Chloroplast, they are the green plastids. They contain chlorophyll and they are the site of photosynthesis. Then chromoplast, they are non-green plastids. They give color to the fruits and flowers. Then leucoplasts, they are the colorless plastids and their main function is to store food. And as I have told you, that they are found in those areas of the plant where the sunlight do not reach. So this finishes your long answer type questions. So you may write this answer where on the left hand side, on the plain side, you may draw this chart, and on the right hand side you may explain each plastid using proper sentences. Now this is the last question of your chapter from this book, and here I couldn't find the colored diagram which resembles the same of your book, so I have pasted here the black and white diagram, but it's okay. We can see all the structures, all the cell organelles, and I hope that we'll be able to label all the parts of the cell, all the cell organelles and the other parts of the cell. So let's get started. Okay, we'll start labeling the diagram. As first we will name the diagram. Now this diagram is of animal cell. Okay, it is of animal cell, and let's label all the parts. In the center you can see this is nucleus. This part is nucleus. Then this one is nucleolus. The jelly-like liquid is cytoplasm. This framework, this channel is endoplasmic reticulum. It starts with the nuclear membrane. Then inside the nucleus, the liquid will be called as nucleoplasm. It is nucleoplasm. Then you can see the mitochondria. Then this is Golgi apparatus or Golgi bodies. Then there are, can you see the vacuoles, the smaller ones? They are the vacuoles. Since this is an animal cell, so there will not be any plastid. the outermost covering of the cell, that is the cell membrane. And the smaller dotted structures, they are the site of protein synthesis, that is ribosomes. Now you tell me why I have said that this is the diagram of an animal cell. Yes, because it doesn't have the cell wall. Okay, so this finishes the exercises and question answers of the chapter The Cell from the book Galaxy, the course in science. In the next video, you may check the exercise and question answers of the book Science Ahead and NCERT questions. Okay, thank you and keep watching.